Hi everyone, I'm Aya.
I'm Grace.
And this is the Dancing Devies podcast,
where we nurture the goddess that lives within us all.
Thank you for being here. Today we wanted to film an episode talking about a really powerful experience that we shared in Costa Rica doing a beautiful grandfather peyote ceremony.
This was such a powerful experience.
Yeah, it was so beautiful and I'm excited to share about it. So for some context, we were work trading at a medicine retreat center in Costa Rica for a couple weeks up in the mountains that had a maloca built out there, and that's where the ceremonies were held. So on the last weekend of our stay there,
almost last night?
The night before last, before we left, was the night that we did our peyote ceremony there. And it was life-changing in a lot of ways. It was probably the most traditional. And
it was like Aztec style though. And the only other experience I've had with the grandfather medicine was Lakota.
Yeah, and the Lakota
tradition.
style is much more structured is a great word for it in a sense than what this was. There's
a lot of energetic boundaries in the Lakota style where there's just a lot of like rules in place to keep the energy regulated.
Yeah.
But in this style, it was not so.
It was a lot more free form.
It was a lot more free flowing.
It was hosted by a medicine man and his son and family that were from Mexico. And Aztec style, I don't know if that's really what you would call it, but that is how it felt. It had that that vibe to it for sure.
Yes.
And it was in the maloca instead of inside of a teepee. And looking back, we both agree that the freeform was nice in some ways, but we have a better understanding of why the structure is in place in the teepee, because there was moments, I feel, where the energy got out of hand.
Yes.
And wasn't being maintained. So, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely see the beauty in both.
Yeah, they both have their place 100%, but...
Because it was nice in the ceremony in Costa Rica. We had chairs that we could sit back on, that had a backrest, and we could literally like lay down if we wanted to. But in the Lakota ceremonies, you gotta stand straight up, eyes on the fire for the whole night.
Very stoic.
And there's only like certain breaks that you can go, but in this one we could kind of go on a bathroom break whenever we needed to, but we had to come back in a timely manner. Like, they didn't let us just like wander off.
Yeah.
I did almost like looking at the stars like, wow. And then they're like, Grace, come on back. Come on in.
The medicine was so strong in this ceremony. It was never like that in the ceremonies that I did in the teepee. It was stronger than I knew that peyote could be. I didn't think of peyote as being a very visual medicine. But in this ceremony, we were both having visions.
It was very visual.
That were really, really strong and beyond what I would have expected from that. But
yeah. And I would say that as soon as the medicine was really in my body, we were so tuned in to our circle. We were singing.
Oh my God.
And that was like the first time that I felt comfortable singing in a ceremony ever.
Same. And we were singing every time it came around to us.
And you could sing any song. Like, it didn't have to just be like a peyote song. You could sing like, it was very free in that way. You could sing anything your heart desired.
I feel like our voices
you wanted to
really
share.
opened up in that ceremony. felt so empowering to be able to sing and like have all eyes on you, because it's very vulnerable, especially whenever you are under the influence.
Yes. And it's in a space that you're not necessarily like totally familiar with, like with a family you just met like 2 weeks ago.
There are people there that you don't know.
And it just like a lot of ancient wisdom in that family that I don't know what they're thinking when I'm singing. But in the Lakota ceremonies, I felt like
I never felt comfortable to sing in those ceremonies, but also I will say that this ceremony was much smaller.
Yes, that too. There was more people in the other ones.
There was a lot of people.
And a lot of elders.
And it felt like a lot more pressure in the teepee. This felt a lot more relaxed.
A lot relaxed. And oh yes, that was so special that we could feel comfortable singing like that.
Yeah.
That was a breakthrough.
Do you want to each share like a vision or an experience that we had like from the medicine when we were in there? You can go first.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I feel like in this ceremony, I really was tuning into the importance of the fire, and how important it is, especially in a grandfather ceremony, but in life as a whole. The elements of fire in our life is so powerful. The flame literally keeps life going. And in this ceremony, the fire was often dying, and I felt like when the fire was dying, a part of me was dying. And the trip would kind of go in a different direction or show me shadows in my subconscious that now is being shown. But when the fire would be brought back to life, I would feel so much more secure in myself. And the fire was like giving me the energy to keep going through the night. So that was one of the most powerful experiences with that lesson, that the fire is so important. And tending to the fire in a literal sense, as well as just like tending to the fire of your soul throughout your life, is so important. Like whatever lights your heart up, you gotta tend to it, because it keeps your life going.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Felt like such a huge metaphor that night. Like when the fire was dying, I was like, oh, come on.
And I've heard that's why they call it a grandfather ceremony. It's because the fire is the grandfather. Like it's a fire ceremony. The fire is the heart of the ceremony. And yeah, I did notice that they weren't as on top of tending to the fire as it is in Lakota ceremonies in the teepee, where the fire is tended to very intentionally, and there's a fire tender whose entire purpose,
the whole ceremony,
like very intentionally
and making sure the flow of the fire is not interfered with. Like you keep your front side to the fire the whole
you never turn your back to the fire. You walk in a certain direction around the fire.
You keep the medicine facing a certain way towards the fire.
Yeah, and you give offerings to the fire, like cedar, or like the first food that's brought in the morning. Like you only give good things to the fire. So that's interesting that you were so connected with the fire in that ceremony, because that really is what it's all about.
That was such a pivotal part of that experience for me, was seeing how dark things can get when the fire is like let go of. But whatever was brought back, I was like, oh.
Thanks for sharing.
Yes.
For me, a really powerful experience I had in that ceremony, which was one of many, because again, this was really strong medicine. There
was many lessons packed into this.
Almost felt like on par powerful as ayahuasca, but without the physical discomfort. But it was really, really powerful. I had a really potent experience in the peak of the night where I feel like it was during one of those darker moments when the fire was going down, and I like felt like all closed up like this, and I like went into this little ball, and I went into what I understood to be a past life experience.
Oh, yeah.
Which was like the most powerful. I've had a couple past life experiences, but this was 100% the most vivid one that I've ever seen. But I like went into this ball, and all of a sudden I was transformed into this little girl, like maybe like, I don't know, like a preteen age girl. And I was in a ball and I was crying and like sobbing, and like my back was up against a tree, and I was in the Amazon rainforest. Like I was like an indigenous Amazonian girl, which is interesting because my entire life I've felt so connected to the Amazon and the people that live there, and like it's just like one of my biggest passions from a very young age.
Yes, like, and you had another past life experience related to that a couple years before.
Yeah.
This one.
I feel so strongly. I remember whenever I was in elementary school, I was like looking at a Nat Geo book, like those Nat Geo kids books they would hand out at school, and I saw a picture of indigenous Amazonian women, and it struck me so hard. Like I was like, I have to go here. And I've never, like, that memory has always been there. Like, and I feel like that's why. I don't know. Personally, I believe in past lives just because of my, like, experiences. But in this experience, I was this little girl, and I was sobbing and I was crying. And I couldn't gather exactly what I was so upset about, but it felt like it was related to ayahuasca. And it felt like it had something to do with I was scared to work with the medicine, or I was being told that I was going to have to like train and be a shaman, and I was afraid of that, or like I wanted to do that and I wasn't being allowed to. There was like something happening between me and my relationship with ayahuasca, which was just super fascinating to me really still to come back. Yeah.
And how in your life, your current life, your path with ayahuasca is so important.
It feels like it's not my first time working with it. And I think that's part of it. And that's
why it's coming back up from your past life experiences.
Potentially. This is just like what I'm gathering from like a short experience. But whenever I came out of that in the ceremony and I was back in the Maloka, because I had been like in the jungle, but I was back in the Maloka, and I just like looked at Grace and I was like, I was just in a past life. I feel like I told you, did I tell you that? And you're like, whoa.
Whoa. Yeah, oh my gosh, I remember that exact moment. And I felt like soon after that, I was having this experience where I was like seeing into the future, like a little bit into the future of us in the Maloka, like things that were happening in the Maloka.
Like right before they happened?
Yes, like how I had this whole vision of the woman next to us who was a helper of the shaman and his wife. I had a vision of her offering us tobacco to like ground ourselves after that, or after like the peak of the night. And then that was just like a vision in my mind, but then like 10 minutes later, she like actually offered it to us. Cause I was like, oh no, there's no way that could happen, because I feel like that's reserved for them to do. Like the people like
we didn't know if we had permission
the event
to smoke tobacco during the ceremony.
Yeah, I felt like it was maybe just for before, but she actually offered it, and just like more trippy little premonitions were happening throughout that night. Oh
my gosh. I just thought of the music. Oh my gosh.
Oh
so the shaman's son, who was also his apprentice, was the most incredible musician. We loved his music so much. It was all created by him, and it was just so fun and lighthearted and hip hop hop yama hop hip hop hop yama hop yam bim
bim bom
yahoo but it like had this like really fun
like you just
ancient
couldn't help but like,
energy to it, and he was drumming while he was doing it, and we were getting down like when every time that we'd get to him for his turn for a song, we'd literally be like going like dancing so hard because his music was so good. It was like it always lightened the energy, and he was just incredible. I loved him so much. I actually ended up getting a tattoo from him before we left because we loved him so much.
And we had him send us a recording of that song that he sang.
Which maybe we should share one day.
Yes!
Because it's such a cool, unique song. But my absolute favorite moment, I think we can both agree with this, of the ceremony was the pipe ceremony.
Oh my gosh.
Which was just so otherworldly whenever it happened. He came in towards the end of the ceremony, he just looked so cool. Like he had these huge gauges, and he was basically wearing like a really long like skirt, drapery, like loincloth, like down to the floor. And he was like shirtless, and he just looked like an ancient, powerful.
And he had been the doorman all night long, like right by the door.
But he came in with this huge pipe. Like I have never seen it was like
a cinder block,
like
with a stick. Like it was a pipe. Like
it was a powerful pipe, and
like a pipe passed down through generations.
Yeah,
and initiations.
Many initiations. The shaman was speaking in Spanish, and it was being translated to us, and he had been saying something like he had to go through so many sun dances and throw so many really intense initiations to be able to
hold the pipe,
to
administer it to everyone,
to bear the pipe, basically. And the pipe had a dance involved with it. So he was going around the circle in a very intentional way, doing this very specific dance with the pipe where he'd be like rotating it in this certain direction, and it had anise and other herbs in it. Yeah, he was blowing the smoke in the four directions, and he would come up to each of us, he'd hit the pipe, spin it, we'd hit the pipe, spin it, he would have to clear it.
He would have to hit it after each person and clear the energy in order to hand it off to the next person. And it all was in this very specific way.
Yeah,
like,
it was
that he knew how to keep the energy of it fresh for the whole entire circle. That was amazing.
That was the coolest ceremony experience of my life. Just something was just so beautiful about the way that he carried this pipe, and the way that it all looked to me in that space. In the maloca, very dark with the fire, like I felt like I was in a cave in ancient times, and we were doing a very ancient ritual. Like this is
like he had explained that the first original people like were doing this.
Yeah, like
pipe.
And I think he had
like the white buffalo
calf woman was the one who taught the two-leggeds about the pipe, and that is what brings the people together, and it just felt so potent in that moment.
Yes.
Wow, yeah, that was so beautiful.
That was one of the most magical moments of that night. And there were so many.
And
that, like...
It was so interesting, though, because I had had such a really positive and beautiful experience in this ceremony until the shaman, the medicine man's wife, left the ceremony because her twin boys were waking up at home.
She left at about 6 a.m.?
And
there was still about 2 hours or so left, because we went in at 8 p.m. to leave at 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So she left a little bit early.
Yeah. And my back was kind of hurting, and she had like a lay down mat. So I had asked if I could go like to her mat because I wanted to lay down, and it was like an instant vibe shift whenever I moved and sat in her seat behind the altar, like next to I was in between the medicine man and the facilitator, and something about the energetic shift of me moving seats really changed my experience, which is interesting because in the teepee, in Lakota ceremonies, they really make an emphasis on like once you have your spot, that's your spot. So, and I really agree with that now after this experience, because I just got really down and really sad, and like
I feel like you were experiencing a bit of her inner world, like what she must have been processing before.
It did seem like she was like not in the best place, like truthfully. So it makes sense. And also like the energetics of sitting, I think, behind the altar can be different. But yeah, and then I like went through this whole process. Like I feel like, yeah, you could really dive into that, but it was so interesting because it changed everything for me. And then
it changed everything.
Once the ceremony ended and we walked out of the Maloka, I started bawling, crying. I think we both did.
We were all crying.
We were all crying, but then I actually could not stop crying for at least 2 hours, uncontrollably, like, and I didn't know even what I was crying about. It felt like this like cathartic release that I had no control over. Just
releasing.
Unable to stop crying.
Yeah. Just so grateful to be alive. I felt like was a lot of my tears. Like, what a magical experience to have. Like, that was just some of the most potent magic I've ever experienced in my life, like that night. And then coming out and like the beautiful sky, like the morning sky welcoming us, and like the birds flying in the air. Like I was just like, oh. Life is so precious. And then the beautiful friend Adela that we met there.
We made friends with the most beautiful girl from
Czechia.
Oh my gosh, she was so sweet. Yeah, we spent a lot of time with her. And then we went and hiked at a waterfall,
we slept like
park.
2 hours or 3 hours after that whole night, and then we're off to a beautiful hike.
It was our last day, and we really wanted to go see this like.
We were wrapping up our conversation anyway, so we just wanted to hop back on once we got a little bit of charge and say thank you so much for listening to our experience and our journey. We really enjoyed sharing that with you, and we have so much gratitude and respect for this medicine and for the people that have dedicated their lives to working with it and serving other people and helping other people heal and do their work.
Yes.
Thank you
so much gratitude and reverence.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're so grateful for these cultures and the openness of the people that work with this medicine to share it with outsiders. It is so powerful, and we're very, very grateful to have been able to have this experience and to share it with you. So if you liked this video, let us know in the comments. Let us know if you have any questions or if you want to hear more story times like this.
Yes. We have many other experiences to share. So if you're interested to hear that, let us know and we can have more conversations.
Yes. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram at Dancing Debbie's. So we hope to see you again soon.
Bye. Yes. Bye.